can I talk? We're doing questions before. Afternoon to everybody joining us. We just going to give it another minute for everybody to log in, and then we'll kick off. Right, I think I'm going to say good afternoon to everybody. A warm welcome to everybody who's joined us. I know it's our first webinar of the year, so if we haven't spoken yet, Happy New Year to you. I think it's probably the last Happy New Year's that I'm going to probably be saying this year. I hope that 2023 has been treating you well so far, and that everything you've planned has gone according. Today we're going to be speaking about a healthy lifestyle for a healthy mind. We're going to be touching on some of Andrew Huberman's work through his research in the Hubermanlab. Lisa's put together such a cool session for us this afternoon. For those who haven't met Lisa yet, Lisa Berger, she is a executive coach. She runs her own personal mastery company, and is looking forward to speaking to us a little bit today. Thanks, Lise.
Thanks, Danny. Thank you. So a warm welcome to everybody on a topic that is really close to my heart around how do we cultivate a healthy lifestyle for a healthy mind. And really pertinent in the last 3 years has become a focus on mental wellness. And there are a couple of really simple things that we can do to cultivate this healthy lifestyle. So for those of you who like structure, here's a little bit of an agenda of what we're going to cover. This is me and Danny welcoming you to this webinar, first one for the year. We're going to do a mindfulness practice. I know many of us, it's 2 o'clock in the day. We've been to several different meetings. So much has happened since we woke up. And to just sort of stop for a moment, presence ourselves so that we can maximize the effectiveness of our mental state, emotional state, and focus for the 5 core principles of well-being. And these simple routines, rituals, or ways of showing up and starting our day that impact our lifestyle towards being that one of a more healthy one. We're also going to have a look at a couple of habits that impact our well-being negatively, that are mostly socially acceptable. And maybe it could nudge some of us to think about what small shifts and changes we could make to enhance our health. And then we'll do a Q&A and Danny will close for us. So I hope you're going to enjoy the session. The session is a little bit of information as well as a couple of practices and experiments. So I encourage you to join us in the experiments and explorations of how different tools may impact your well-being and your current state. So without any further ado, let's do a short mindfulness practice. This is a beautiful picture in front of us. Our brains cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So just seeing a picture of nature's beauty and bounty can start to trigger certain neural pathways in the brain that are uplifting and producing more positive chemicals. So part of this exercise is an invite to either close your eyes or to keep your eyes focused on something on the screen that you feel would be a comfortable, soft, gentle gaze, or you can turn your focus inward, gently close your eyes, whichever feels more comfortable, uncross your legs, place your hands with your fingertips facing upwards towards the ceiling and your knuckles gently resting on the tops of your legs. And I'd like to invite you to just simply sit up a little bit more straight than you were so that we're creating some space for those lungs. And when you're ready, just take a long, slow, deep inhale, as though we're cleansing our breath with a great big exhale. And another one. Deep breath in. And one more, making space in our minds, in our hearts, and in our bodies. And as you exhale, just become present to what might be going on inside your mind, your body, and your heart, right here, right now, at approximately 5 minutes past 2 on this Valentine's Day. Just for a few moments, tune into yourself. Perhaps taking a step back on your day and observing what may have already happened. What are the things that may be taking up space in your mind? Dropping a little bit deeper into the body. Leaving the thoughts, dropping down into the body, noticing how it feels inside your skin. Perhaps noticing how it feels in the back of your neck, your shoulders, your lower back, your hips, your knees, right down to your feet. Just allowing your awareness to just rest there, taking in perhaps any thoughts that may now pop up without judging them, just noticing them. And perhaps inviting all those parts of your mind that may not yet be with you to come and join you, to be present in this moment, as though you're making space in your mind for some information that could help you cultivate a deeper sense of well-being. When you feel ready, and as though all of you has arrived, gently open your eyes, and if they were already open, you may want to have a nice stretch and a yawn, extending those hands above your head, maybe expanding those legs outwards under your chair, forwards in front of you. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit more at ease, a little bit more focused, and your mind possibly a little bit clearer. The first place I'd like to start as a foundation for our conversation this afternoon is establishing what is well-being. The World Health Organization defines it as not merely an absence of disease or infirmity, but a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And I want to suggest that it's even more than that, as it also encompasses the experience of health, happiness, and prosperity. In other words, having an overall high level of life satisfaction, feeling like our lives are meaningful and have purpose. Well-being is a state of showing up that enables us to manage stress. So when we have a state of well-being, small things that happen in our day, perhaps it's the traffic, perhaps it is load shedding, these things, if we have a high level of well-being, we can manage these little things that frustrate us. But when our well-being is compromised, we may find that small things that impact us unravel us. Our well-being emerges from our thoughts, actions, and experiences. And I want to suggest that we have control over these things most of the time. And so today I want to offer you a couple of ideas around how to cultivate well-being intentionally every 24 hours in your day. If you're interested, at the bottom of the slides, which you will get at the end of today's session, there is a link to the Berkeley Wellbeing Survey. If you are keen to have an exploration or a better understanding of the specifics of your own well-being, this might be something that you may want to do after this session. So we are using the work of Andrew Huberman this morning or this afternoon. Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist from Stanford, a very well-researched neuroscientist. He has a lab that runs peer-reviewed research on the various different things we're going to talk about today. I've got a couple of video clips so that we're getting his research straight out of the horse's mouth. So if we have a look at these 5 pillars, they're really, really simple things that help us to bring vitality, rejuvenation, and clarity of mind into our day-to-day performance. And so the first one is really, really simple. This is the one of our sleep. Getting to 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night is crucial to our well-being. One night of a disturbed sleep can actually affect our neurochemistry for up to 72 hours afterwards. I have included here 2 links that you might find interesting. The one is Matthew Walker. He is one of the top researchers on sleep at the moment. He's got a TED talk called Sleep is Your Superpower. And I have also included a link to Andrew Huberman's Toolkit for Sleep. If you struggle with sleep, these are 2 great resources that you may want to look at. Just a couple of things around your sleep is our brain does not have any cleansing system like our body does. And it is actually during our night's sleep when our brain goes through the appropriate and deep enough sleep cycle that our brain actually flushes itself of metabolic waste that has occurred over the day. When our sleep is disturbed during the night, this flushing process can be disturbed that results in us feeling quite foggy the next day. Some pointers on that, getting a good night's rest is trying to avoid caffeine, sedatives, and alcohol before you go to bed. Try and get to bed at the same time every night so that you're building yourself into a routine, and try and get rid of screen time 1 hour before you go to bed. I know many of us sit in bed at nights, checking our emails, checking our WhatsApps. So the suggestion is try and do that before that hour of actually going to turn the light off and slow down. You also want to try and dim the lights that last hour before you go to sleep. Really simple, but it is not that easy to achieve regularly. The second pillar is 2 to 10 minutes of morning sunlight in your eyes as soon as you wake up, or as in the first 1 to 3 hours of waking up. interestingly enough, getting this sunlight in our eyes is a way to elevate our morning cortisol, which can lead to our elevated mood, improved immune function, and some improved focus throughout the day. In fact, this habit of spending some time receiving some sunlight in our eyes actually helps us with our sleep cycle. So I'd like to invite you to sit back and relax and enjoy this short clip from Andrew Huberman on some of his research around what implications this habit of morning sunlight can have on our bodies and what may be some of the advices on keeping our eyes safe at the same time.
Viewing the sun early in the morning, 2 to 10 minutes with no sunglasses, overcast, and horizon gauging. How is this going to help with brain optimization?
Yeah, so it's very clear. All right, so without doing a total deep dive in circadian biology, every cell in our body has a 24-hour clock that's regulated by genetic mechanisms and cellular mechanisms. Every cell. Right? There's no escape from this. And it's not a coincidence that the Earth spins once about every 24 hours. Okay? So there's a strong evolutionary drive for us to obey circadian principles in biology, our behavior, our sleep patterns, our food intake, etc. So the main way in which our body and nerve cells and liver cells and gut cells know what time of day it is by the rising and setting of the sun. And it's not consciously perceived. It's not like you say, oh, there's the sun, I see the sun, there it's setting. There's actually, in a subconscious way, there's a specific set of neurons in the eye called melanopsin ganglion cells. These are cells that were discovered by a guy at Brown University and David Wilson. These cells perceive the particular, they are activated by the particular wavelengths of light created by low solar angle when the sun is low in the sky and when it's setting again low in the sky. So rising and setting is low solar angle. When it's directly overhead, high solar angle. So what's interesting about this is that these cells, when activated, send a nerve pulse to a set of neurons that sit right above the roof of your mouth called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Those cells secrete a bunch of things into your body and organize the timing of all the cellular processes. All the cellular processes in your body. Now, it's not like your liver cells need to be active at the same time as your heart cells. Your heart has to be active 24 hours around the clock. Your gut has to do its thing at different times. So think of your body kind of like a factory, and every portion of that factory needs to do different things at different times of day. When you view the morning sun, it doesn't have to be right as the sun crosses the horizon. It can be, I would say view sunlight within an hour of waking up, ideally within the first 15 or 30 minutes, but within the first hour of waking up.
Does this work through a window, or does it have to be?
It works through a window.
Okay.
It is best if you can get outside. Okay. It's best if you take some glasses off. You do not need direct light coming into your eyes. It can be reflected off it. So if you're on a snowfield in winter, you need, without sunglasses, probably going to take 30 seconds to trigger activation. So a densely overcast day in the depth of winter in Scandinavia, you might actually have to get an artificial light that mimics sunlight in order to stimulate this high level of activation. A couple of things happen when you get morning light. And of course, never look at any light that's so painful it's hard to look at. We haven't solved the retinal regeneration thing yet. So
that's not a good idea.
But on cloudy days, there are a lot of photons, a lot of light energy. Okay, there's still a ton of light coming through compared to artificial light. Early in the day, you need a lot of bright light to trigger this mechanism. The irony is that in the middle of the night, you need very little light to trigger a separate mechanism that we'll talk about that's actually very bad. So when you view morning light in this way, from artificial, and if you wake up before the sun, turn on artificial lights. But when you view morning light in this way, it triggers activation of the cortisol pulse, which is a healthy pulse of a hormone that puts your system into a general state of focus and activation for the day. It also sets off a timer of about 16 hours that runs down, and after that 16 hours, the melatonin pulse starts coming up. So that melatonin is going to put you to sleep. The cortisol is going to help you move through your day. It's also going to protect you against infection and things like that. Not every infection, but it's going to enhance the immune system. A lot of people don't know this, but stress hormones in the short term actually enhance and invigorate the immune system. This makes sense. If you've ever been working really hard and then you stop and rest, you get sick and rest.
So who would have thought that something as simple as sunlight in the mornings could trigger off this multitude of different activities in our bodies. And I just want to remind you once again to please make sure that you're not looking directly into the sun, as this will do damage to your eyes. So please be cautious around how you are receiving this message. Protecting our eyes is really key. So Andrew Huberman is talking about your circadian rhythms and better understanding your body's biological clock that takes place in a 24-hour cycle. So as he was mentioning, as we're waking up from 12 o'clock towards 6 o'clock in the morning, we would be in our deepest sleep and our body would have its lowest temperature. And at around 6 o'clock, our body starts to produce cortisol that helps us to wake up. In fact, if you are in a state of well-being, your body will wake up without any alarm if the body is in a well-balanced state. And it will usually wake up at around about the same time every day, depending on whether it's winter or summer. Of course, when we are exposing ourselves to some sunlight, there's an increase in blood pressure. And as we're going towards 12 o'clock, the body should be in a state of high alertness. We have our best coordination, fastest reaction times, and our highest body temperature for the 24-hour cycle will be at 6 o'clock. Here, our blood pressure is at its highest, and our body starts to produce that melatonin secretion. So there's a whole bunch of complex processes that very often when we're driving to work in the dark and we're coming home in the dark, when we've had no exposure to sunlight, this prevents our circadian rhythms and setting off our body's usual metabolic processes. I can't express more how a simple process like this can assist you in creating a healthy state of being. The third pillar that helps us to create a state of physical and mental health and ultimate well-being is 3 to 10 minutes of movement. And that kind of movement that we're referring to here could be anything from stretching first thing in the morning, running on the spot, making love, dancing, yoga, any form of movement that gets the body going. And I want to add in here another one that Andrew Huberman doesn't necessarily mention as one of his 3 pillars, but intentional breathing is a beautiful way to also set the body in motion for cleansing out any trapped air. Your breath, your inhale helps to create a metabolic shift in the gases in your body. It also helps to reinvigorate the brain and cleanse the body of any metabolic waste that may have gathered over the night. Really, really, really simple. So Andrew's done some interesting research on which breathing techniques reduce our stress the quickest, the fastest, and most effective, and also increases an increased positive mood. And this he calls cyclic physiological sighing, that helps us to reduce stress at the same time. So you could incorporate this practice in your 3 to 10 minutes of breathing in the morning. You could also do this just before you start your movement or your exercise. Let's have a listen to Andrew quickly. And you will notice that he is an incredibly technically minded, as he gives us the details in depth.
Laboratory and David Spiegel's laboratory have initiated a set of studies exploring how respiration or breathing can impact states of mind. Given the stress that everybody's feeling nowadays, we wanted to offer a tool that could be used to promote a sense of calm and push back on stress anytime you're feeling too much stress. It involves taking 2 inhales followed by an extended exhale. And ideally, both inhales are through the nose and the exhale is through the mouth. Although if you have to do it all through the nose or all through the mouth, that's fine too. So it looks something like this. So it's an inhale followed by a second inhale and then an extended exhale. What this is thought to do is to promote the correct ratio of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the lungs and bloodstream, as well as the activation of a neural circuit that links the brain and body and promotes a sense of calm.
So let's try that together. Let's try to do 6 of those cyclic, physiological sighing practices. So two in through the nostrils and an exhale out through the mouth. 2 in. Try and breathe into your belly and into your chest. And exhale out through the mouth. That's 2. Let's try a third one. Into the belly, into the chest. And exhale out through the mouth. 3. That's your fourth one. 5, one more. Just close your eyes for a moment and notice any shifts or changes in your body. So you might feel a little lightheaded. You might feel a little tingly. These short 6 breaths are kind of like taking a snow globe and shaking it in your body as the gases shift and change as you're increasing the oxygen and expelling out more carbon dioxide. And so you may notice as the body starts to settle back down, a shift in your mental focus, that the mind feels a little bit clearer. So I encourage you to incorporate this very simple practice as you're waking up in the morning. Just while you're lying there in bed, see if it makes a discernible difference. It's also a great way to revitalize yourself at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you're starting to feel tired. Instead of reaching for that Red Bull or a cup of caffeine, it may be a good idea to just take a couple of breaths. Remember that caffeine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon will be impacting your sleep and being able to fall asleep. So those are the 3 pillars so far. The 4th pillar is nutrition. There are many nutritious fads that come and go. 1 minute it's with keto, then it's carb cycling, and go plant-based. I want to suggest that nutrition is highly individual, and it really is about discovering what works best for you, for your body to feel vital, alive, and ready for whatever task you have at hand. If you are curious around investigating a little bit more around your nutrition, I have included a link there for you for the Hubermanlab, Nutrients for Your Brain for Health and Performance. And to really start noticing, when I eat this, how does it make your body feel 30 minutes later? I love eating bread, but I do find 30 minutes later, I slip into a dense brain fog. So for me, it's much better to have an apple when I'm wanting to reach for a carb. Of course, my recommendation is always to eat something whole and nutritious that comes out of the earth. So your vegetables, having color on your plate. Some dietitians recommend to have at least 5 colors on your plate at a time. And of course, drinking a lot of water to help flush the fibers. And a lot of water, 1.5 liters per day, for the average human being is ideal. Another key piece of nutrition is starting to learn to read the back of food labels, particularly food that has been highly processed, to become more aware of the fat content, how much sodium or salt is in it, and how much sugar is in it. Sugar from fruit is the ideal sugar to be having as opposed to refined sugars. The last pillar is a really interesting one. The last pillar of your keys to physical and mental health is having healthy relationships with others, relationships where you feel connected, you feel heard, seen, and listened to. And feeling like those relationships are nourishing. The second piece of that is having a good relationship with yourself. So being mindful of your boundaries and setting appropriate boundaries, being aware of what emotions you're having and how to manage your nervous system when you find yourself in a highly activated emotional state. Being able to name an emotion and determine how to manage your behavior in response to what that emotion's message is for you becomes really key in establishing a healthy relationship with yourself. Of course, there is also this ability to care for ourselves. So noticing when our physical energies are low, when our mental health is at risk, when we're feeling more edgy and angry or a little bit more shut down than normal. That self-awareness, that relationship with ourselves enables us to take action, whether it be to seek help, to take a day where we recuperate out of our normal environment. So maybe walking in nature on the weekends. Maybe it may be making sure that you have a really good night's rest. Perhaps it might be reducing social engagements with others so that you can replenish your own energies. And you're able to monitor what might be going on with you during your day-to-day experiences. So these 5 pillars of physical and mental health need to be attended to every 24 hours. We need to be checking in that we are ensuring that we are getting each of these. However, if you are ill or under the weather, not feeling well, it is advisable on that day to not exercise, particularly if illness is anything. If you've got an upper respiratory tract infection, most doctors recommend that if it's anything from the chin down, that you should rather not do exercise on that particular day. Andrew does talk about an 80-20 principle. So you want to be getting these 5 pillars right 80% of the time to have a constant and consistent state of well-being and physical and mental health. And when you have a day where you've eaten badly or you've had less sleep than others, you want to make sure that the next couple of days you are more mindful around taking care of yourself in that particular area. Andrew talks about a couple of amplifiers. Now, there are many, many protocols that help to enhance our well-being and our body's equilibrium. And so I wanted to bring a couple here that are not replacements for those 5 pillars, but they would be additions to your process that could amplify and assist the body to be in an even better state. You would have heard a lot about this deliberate cold exposure. Cold exposure would be, and many people are gathering in places where they offer ice bars. I don't think it needs to be as tough as that. You could start off with just getting in the shower, and at the end of your shower, you can turn on the tap, turn off all the hot water slowly but surely until you're able to just feel the cold water pouring over your head. Start with 10 seconds and see if you can build it up over time. When we are exposing ourselves to this temperature change, the body produces dopamine, which is a molecule that elevates our mood, enhances our focus, our attention, and our goal-directed behavior. Even very short bouts of 10 to 20 seconds of ice cold water in your shower can increase a lasting dose of dopamine in your system that is going to improve your mood and your energy for the day. Your cold exposure also encourages your body to produce endorphins, and endorphins are kind of your body's happy chemicals after a run. They are great at bringing about anti-inflammatory responses in the body. The other one that is sort of not, it's kind of like saunas were very in fashion when I was sort of a teenager. They seem to have come back as more recent studies, particularly by the Hubermanlab, have found that regular use of sauna decreases our cortisol levels. Now, cortisol is very necessary to wake up in the morning, but increased cortisol levels all day, every day, over a long period of time actually causes havoc in our body, causes high levels of stress. And so when we are feeling quite stressed, a sauna is a great place to go and get the body to activate our DNA repair process. And it helps to get the body's molecular mechanisms, termed heat shock proteins, that help our body to repair protein structures in our cells. If you belong to a gym that has a sauna and you haven't used it, this is the invite to do so. Then there is what I recommend, various different breathwork techniques. These are different techniques. There are thousands of them that have come from ancient Eastern traditions, and there are more and more of them being brought into the fore, where you intentionally change the rhythm and rate of your inhale to your exhale. And this change of breath rates can change your state of consciousness. If you are curious about learning more, we did a webinar in April last year. And if you go to our Kaelo website and you look through the webinars, there is a webinar link recording to our techniques of breathing to bring about different states of consciousness. And of course, the age-old amplifier to our well-being is massage. Getting a massage stimulates serotonin and dopamine into the body. It also produces endorphins, which produce a state of feeling great, as well as reducing inflammation in the body. It also reduces your brainwave activity so that the body's muscular system and tendons are relaxed and released. It also will improve your quality of sleep by activating your parasympathetic nervous response. So you may want to incorporate one or more of these when it comes to your exposing your body to the heat or to the cold. Obviously, it gets the body to start activating its adaptation abilities, and it increases the body's ability to adapt. When our body's more able to adapt to different circumstances, interestingly enough, the strength in our bodies then produces a strength in our mental state that enables us to be more resilient emotionally and psychologically. Building on from these amplifiers, Andrew's lab has also done some extensive research where they tested the different protocols of things that can amplify our healthy lifestyle. And in their testing, they discovered that meditation specifically improves our mental focus. If you're working with breathing techniques, this will reduce stress most predominantly. And then he speaks a lot about non-sleep deep rest, which I'm going to give you a little taster of in a moment so that you can experience it for yourself and perhaps go and have a look at some of the links that are available. Your NDSR is a practice that just in 5 minutes can restore our energy. So I thought a practice like this might be really, really restorative as we're heading for that 3 o'clock energy dip. The suggestion or the recommendation is that practicing these kind of amplifiers for just 5 to 10 minutes a day will lead to more consistent and persistent effects. So when I am meditating or breathing for just 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, I am more likely to continue this practice over in a more extended period of time, as opposed to trying to meditate for an hour or 20 minutes. And when things get busy, and most of us are really busy in our lives, we then give up these amplifiers because we kind of think that's a luxury. So just doing 3 to 5 minutes is enough to make a lasting change. So as I promised, here is a little experiment and an exploration of what this non-sleep deep rest is all about. If you are interested in, if you find that this is a helpful tool, I have included a link at the bottom there. So here we go. Follow the prompts. As we go into this short clip, try to keep your focus on what's happening in your body and the instructions that follow. Enjoy.
As you settle in, allow any tension to drain from the body. Every exhale, sinking deeper into the support of the surface beneath you. Take a big inhale and let it go to the side. Allow any momentum from your day to wash away. Let everything go. Rolling landing here and now. Bring all your awareness to the top of your head. Allow your awareness to drip down to the forehead, eyes, cheeks, and ears.
Okay, I'm receiving a message that you guys are not hearing it. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why the sound is not playing through. So we will send you the link so that you can practice on your own. I'm really sorry that that is not being received well on your side. So, of course, many of us might be following some of these protocols of the 5 pillars. We may even be doing some breathwork exercise, eating right, and then we imbibe in alcohol. And so there have been many research studies, particularly of the Mediterranean diet, that recommends that having a glass or 2 of wine a day is actually good for us. The latest neuroscience is bringing us some different insight, and this is a very short clip. It's straight into the point on how alcohol is affecting our brains, even just 1 or 2 glasses a day. I hope you can hear this. If you can't, please will you just drop it in the chat.
If people are ingesting alcohol chronically, even if it's not every night, there are well-recognized changes in neural circuits, there are well-recognized changes in neurochemistry within the brain, and there are well-recognized changes in the brain-to-body stress system that generally point in 3 directions. Increased stress when people are not drinking, diminished mood and feelings of well-being when people are not drinking, and, as you'll soon learn, changes in the neural circuitry that cause people to want to drink even more in order to get just back to baseline with the place that they were in terms of their stress modulation and in terms of their feelings of mood before they ever started drinking in the first place.
So what we find is that many of us think just having that glass of wine or that one drink to take the edge off has a more negative impact on our brains than we think. There is some new research by Dr. Huberman. If anybody's familiar with his work, he studies brains, and he says over a period of time of regular alcohol use, it actually shrinks our brain, and it reduces the communication between our neural fibers. So unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that reducing our alcohol intake is the way to go for 2023. The other habit that tends to reduce our healthy lifestyle is smoking, and having been a smoker for 20 years, and then moving on to vaping, and then discovering the impact of vaping on my brain. I can gladly say that I have recently given up the habit of vaping gave up smoking a year ago and replaced it with vaping, and hoping that I can stay that way. Let's have a look what Andrew says about the impact of smoking and vaping on our brain.
Cigarette smoking and vaping now known to dramatically decrease cognitive function, because one of the key things about the brain is that it is the most metabolically demanding organ, which means it consumes a lot of glucose, or even if you're ketogenic, you need ketones. You need nutrients getting to the neurons and other cell types of the brain and nervous system in order for it to function properly. And when you disrupt the vasculature through this endothelial cell dysfunction, you get things like interstitial, which just means in the spaces between dysfunction. So it's not just beating up the endothelial cells themselves, but the spaces between the cells is being disrupted. There's a lot of debris that accumulates there. And as a consequence, the brain just simply will not function as well.
So often when we drink alcohol, it's accompanied with smoking or vaping. And so you can imagine the effects on our brain when we combine these habits. So today we've presented to you 5 pillars that help you to improve your physical and mental health. We've looked at some of the amplifiers, and now we've looked at some habits that may detract from your well-being. I'd like to invite you to rate your current commitment to your well-being. If you're looking at your life currently, how many of the 5 pillars are you actually incorporating into your 24 hours? And which habits may you be still imbibing in or enjoying that may be detracting? So if I can invite you, if you're familiar with doing a Slido, to pick up your cell phones, open your camera. You can then hover your camera over the QR code in the left-hand side of your screen. And the web address should come up on the screen. Oh, great. We've got some people saying that they're rating themselves really well.
Lisa, I wonder if while we're here, if you want to do a question or two.
That'll be great. Have you got some?
I do. So a gentleman wants to know if Hubly has the same effect on the brain as what the vaping and smoking does.
Well, that would all depend on what has been put into the Hubly block. And most of those flavored tobaccos have some form of paraben. And so whilst I'm not an expert on the matter, I would say that it would also be hampering the brain to a greater or a lesser extent.
Okay. Then there's another, when you spoke about the hot and cold exposure, is there any benefits to doing both together?
In fact, traditionally, a sauna was done where and particularly in the Nordic regions, you would get into the sauna, sit there until you can't take it anymore, and then you jump into an ice cold bath or a pool. So yes, apparently there is. I wouldn't rush into doing that first off the bat. Your body needs to learn to be able to adapt to that over a period of time. So I would always say, do it moderately to start with until your body, you don't want to have a heart attack jumping into that ice cold water because your body is not familiar with. So when you're in the heat exposure, your arteries, veins, and capillaries are actually opening and expanding. And then, of course, when you go into the cold, the body would contract those. And so we don't want to create too much of extremes unless the body is more familiar with that adaptation process. But yes, certainly, to build up to be able to do both, yes.
I also think maybe then checking with your doctor.
And maybe checking with your doctor, yes. Yeah, not something to try at home alone.
Then I've got a question here. I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer or not, but I'm going to give it a go. Are some alcohol options better than other ones? So is beer less of an evil compared to the spirits?
No. I'm probably not qualified to say, but with all the research that I've been looking at recently, no alcohol is lighter in affecting our brain. Many of them are blended with highly processed sugars that have all sorts of other destructive effects. So no, I wish I could tell you different, but a glass of water would probably be much better.
Thanks, Lisa. I think that's the questions for now.
Okay, so let's see. Well, we've got a lot of people sort of sitting in the midway, and I hope that today has been the spark of doing one small thing a little bit differently when you wake up tomorrow morning that could improve your physical and mental health. And from my side, I'd like to thank all of you for participating, for the questions that have emerged. And if you're looking for a copy of this webinar, it will be made available on the Kaelo website. And thank you for joining. I'd like to hand you over to Danny.
Thanks, Lise. So, just in closing for everybody, if you have enjoyed today's webinar, I firstly want to send a big thank you to Lisa for spilling her brain on us. We greatly appreciate you and value very much your knowledge and input into all these topics. For any future webinars, I just want to emphasize that the webinars are brought to you by Kaelo. Kaelo's aim is to make private healthcare affordable and accessible to all South Africans. If you want to know a little bit more about it, you can log on to our website, kaelo.co.za, find out a little bit about our products. If you want any more information about the webinars coming up, on our home screen, you'll see on the bottom right-hand side, there's a Kaelo webinars in big and bold. Click on that, it'll take you through to the webinars up and coming. The webinars this year are a little bit different to last year in that we don't have a calendar in advance. We want to keep it a little bit more relevant this year, making sure we're having the right conversation at the right time and not predicting too far forward on the kind of conversation that would be appropriate. So keep tuned on the website and what's upcoming. If you've registered for today's webinar, you will get an email within a week with the recording and with a blurb on what's coming next. So keep tuned on your emails and on your junk mail. If you do have any recommendations for any webinars you want to know about, you're welcome to pop me a message on the chat so we can take all those into consideration going forward. Then lastly, just an emphasis, this webinar is free. It's available to the whole of South Africa. So if you've got any family, friends that you think would be interested in listening to the webinar, share the link with them. It's completely free for everybody. We hope that we'll see you in March. The webinars will be on the second Tuesday of every single month at 2 p.m. So we look forward to seeing you in March. Thank you so much for everybody who attended. Have a wonderful rest of your Valentine's Day. Take care and be kind. Thank you.